Hey guys, welcome back to Salem, Cellar. So today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite franchises, which is Saw. We're going to be doing a movie ranking from my least favorite from the franchise to a movie that I absolutely adore and watch weekly. I'll be right back. So when I say I love the Saw films, I really, really love it. Like I actually have a Saw tattoo right there. It's one of my favorites, probably top three. I watch these movies often. Like it's almost embarrassing how much I watch Saw movies. So I know them from front to back, all of them, even the ones I don't like as much. Now, I say it's my least favorite, it's just my least favorite. I don't hate the film and I do watch it. So at number 10 is Jigsaw. Now, Jigsaw was released in 2017. Tobin Bell is back. He's reprising his role as John Kramer. Now, this film is pretty bad. It is pretty bad. It's probably the worst out of all of them, even Spiral. Even though Tobin Bell is back in little like flashback prequel clips, it just was bad. The traps were okay. The acting, even for like Saw standards, the acting was not really good. But it does have a really cool little twist at the end that I liked. I liked the twist. I liked who was a part of the twist. If you haven't seen this movie, I don't want to spoil too much, but if you have seen it, you know, they kind of show who is behind all of the killings. You find out then that a lot of this stuff happening in this movie was a prequel and not currently happening. But when they showed who was behind the killings, I did like it. You know, I liked him. I liked his demeanor, his voice. I thought he would have played a good part in future Saw movies. I liked him. And it kind of is a shame that they're probably not going to bring him back for future movies. But that's probably the only part of the film that I really, really enjoyed, besides having Tobin back. Number 9 on my list is Saw 4. Now, Saw 4 was released in 2007. This film takes place pretty much right after John Kramer's death in the third film. Now, why it's rated so low on my list is the story behind it. The traps were good. There was a lot of them. The story was good. The acting was good. It's basically revolves around Lieutenant Rigg. And you just see him going through all these different traps. You're introduced to new characters. You just see him following like these steps and going down the wrong path, like not following the rules, which he should be doing. He learns his lesson the hard way at the end. But then we're kind of introduced to the newest Jigsaw, who's been working with John Kramer the entire time, which is cool. I do like that aspect, but I don't like the story behind it. I don't like the people behind the traps. There's one trap where there's a woman. She kind of is like, I guess, a pimp. Like pimping out like teen girls and people. Like she's clearly a scumbag. And it's just like her scalp or her hair is getting ripped out. Ugh, it was totally cringy for Saw standards. And every time I watch that part, it makes my skin crawl. I have to look away. I don't really like it. And then the very end with Donnie Wahlberg with the ice blocks, that's hard to watch. I was just so happy that Donnie was still alive. I was hoping he had a second chance with his son, Danny. But it was just like, no, Donnie, you don't get a second chance, which really bothered me a lot. But yeah, it is a hard watch. It is a good movie. It is not a bad movie at all. It's just a personal hard watch for me. Then number 8 on my list is 2006's Saw 3. Now, Saw 3 takes place immediately after Saw 2. It's starring Shawnee Smith as Amanda, Tobin Bell, his Jigsaw, as we all know. You kind of see him dying in this one, and you are introduced to this doctor who has to do this surgery on him and try to save his life. Now, again, this is another good movie. The acting was good. The traps are absolutely brutal. But I think it's the story behind this movie that I just, it's upsetting, you know? You find out about, you know, like there's a husband and wife, you know, and the wife is the doctor doing the surgery on John Kramer, and then the husband's going through these traps. So years before, I'm pretty sure it was years before, their son is hit and killed by, you know, somebody. He's riding his bike, somebody hits him and kills him, and then I think flees the scene, or maybe doesn't flee the scene. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I think there's people involved that flee the scene instead of like helping and testifying in court. And you just see people that were involved in that case, including the driver, like involved in these traps. These traps are very brutal. And even though it's just such a sad situation, I don't know if these people really deserved what they got. It wasn't like the newer Saw where it was like, yeah, like torture them. It was kind of hard to watch. And then the story behind it, like it's this couple and they're suffering, they lost their child. And it's just like such trauma being inflicted, like more trauma, you know, with both of them. And then even their daughter. Their daughter's being held by John Kramer and Amanda. And it's just kind of traumatic for her. Like, I just think, like, this is not really a nice thing to do. Like, even though they're not physically harming her, can you imagine what this does to her mentally? And then she loses both parents, and her brother's gone, and she's all by herself. Like, even though she kind of was by herself because her parents were just messed up, she wasn't. I don't know. It was just, it's sad. Maybe I'm really thinking too much into it, but that's what happens when you watch movies like repeatedly over and over. You kind of like put yourself into these characters' shoes, and it's just like, it's sad. It's just like one sad thing after another, and it's hard to really enjoy these traps. Number 7 on my list is Spiral. Spiral was released 2021. It's starring Chris Rock. Now, I do like this movie. Don't get me wrong. I do like it. The acting is not too good. The Jigsaw voice is horrendous. I don't even know if you want to call it a Jigsaw voice. The voice, let's call it. It was just really bad. The traps were really bad. There's not enough. Like, the opening scene trap with the tongue, that was intense. That it was cool. But I think everything else, you just kind of really see the aftermath of it. You don't see it happening, and it's not that many. They're not that good. Kind of lacking there. I did really love Chris Rock's performance. I have to say, I loved him as a cop. I loved him in this role. It was just kind of like, overall, there was like a fun vibe, like a cool vibe with this movie. But it just needed a lot of tweaking. A lot of things needed to be fixed or just taken out, like, or added on. So yeah, it's not one of my favorites. I own it though. I watch it. I do like this movie. It's just not one of the best of the franchise. So number 6 on my list is Saw: The Final Chapter. Now this film is actually in 3D. I really like this movie. Now, it's not like one of the best in my opinion, but it's a good film. The acting was kind of like, but the traps were really cool. Like the 2 guys fighting over the girl who's kind of like leading them both on. Then the one with a bunch of racists, that was really cool and like, ugh, you know, make your skin crawl, no pun intended. But what I really like about this one is you finally find out what happened to Dr. Gordon. You know, in the first film, you see him cutting off his leg and kind of crawling out of there. You're like, he's dead. He's like, I'm going to get help. I'm going to get us help. But he's like pale as a ghost. He looks like he's just about to go. You're like, there's no way this guy's making it. Well, he survives. Now, if you watch other Saw films, like I knew his fate already. I knew what happened after watching like, you know, I think it was like the second film and the third film, you see some guy assisting John Kramer in some videos. You know, there's one with the eye that he had the key behind his eye, and you see a guy kind of limping over to him on the table. That was Dr. Gordon. I picked that up right away. I'm like, wait a second, he's doing like a medical procedure, his leg, like something's wrong with it. Yes, but if you didn't pay close attention to those films, it is confirmed in the final chapter. So that was really exciting. It was so exciting when he came out and you saw his face. The traps in this one were really good. It was really, really good, the traps. It's just the acting was like, oh. John Kramer's wife, yeah, it doesn't end well for her. Detective Hoffman is a beast. Like, this man is a beast. I love him. I'm not really happy with his fate at the end because I was always a fan of his character. But yeah, it's just everything comes full circle in this film. So even though there's like some parts of the story need a little tweaking or the acting needs a little tweaking, overall, this is a good film and it's so much fun. Next on my list at number 5 is Saw X that was just released. Now, I enjoyed this movie. This was a good movie. It was a good Saw film, but again, it felt watered down to me. Now, after I watched it, I did the review. I felt the way I did, but then, other people chimed in with their opinions and they were right. I was not happy with how the traps really were, how many traps they had, but he was in another country. He kind of had to send everything there, or, this wasn't like in the US where he's used to working. So yeah, so I'm going to give him a little leeway there. I still didn't like the main con artist. I didn't like her fate. I just felt like that wasn't really a trap for her. She would have stabbed anybody in the back. Like I didn't like that she didn't get what was coming to her. Because of everybody, she deserved the worst fate. I don't know if they plan on using her for future films. I don't really know how they would like put her in. Maybe she gets rehabilitated and starts helping them and doing good. I really doubt it because she was like a level 10 scumbag. But we'll see. We'll see what's to come. But overall, the movie's good. Not one of my favorites. It had like Tobin Bell being back was definitely like A++ for me. Amanda being back. And then the little cameo at the end with Detective Hoffman was cool. But I needed a little bit more out of this film, especially waiting so long for a new Saw film. So number 4 on my list is the original Saw from 2004. You're probably like, Carmela, number 4. Let me explain. So the next 3 movies, they have a special place in my heart. I really love those films. But the original film is such a great movie. I remember the first time I watched it in the movie theater, I'm like, what am I watching? What is going on? This is just craziness. The traps are really cool, just finding the backstory about John Kramer, kind of a little bit who he was, but it didn't really dive too deep. You're trying to figure out who is this killer, who is Jigsaw, and a lot of different characters are thrown into it. The acting is great. You're just at the edge of your seat the entire time. What really got me was the final scene where Dr. Gordon crawls out of the room, leg cut off, like bleeding out, almost dead. And then Adam's there. And then all of a sudden, this guy who you thought was dead the entire time, like starts like getting up. I'm like, holy shit. Like, what did I just watch? Is this a monster movie? Is this a creature feature? Like, he looked like a monster because he had like, fake blood and everything on his face. But that woke me up. So a movie that I don't feel like the first time I watched it, I was really invested. I was really paying attention to a lot of things. Like that final scene, like woke me up. And I remember going back and rewatching it in the theaters and just like, holy crap, this is fantastic. So, and that just started my love for the entire franchise. But that final scene was amazing. I do love this movie. There's some parts of it that are a little boring to me, a little slow, but how can you not love the first Saw film? So number 3 on my list is Saw 5. Now, Saw 5 was released in 2008. Now, John Kramer is dead, and you get a story between Detective Hoffman and Agent Strom. I love these two. I love them going against each other. They're both ruthless. It starts the movie like kind of right at the end where Donnie Wahlberg gets the ice blocks, and then you find out Lieutenant Hoffman is the one working with Jigsaw this whole time. Agent Strom's like, I'm gonna figure things out. You can't stop me. So he gets, I guess, knocked over the head or something, but he wakes up in a trap. He has a glass box over his head. Now, it's filling up with water. He has to figure out how to get out of it and survive. Now, this is almost a trap, like you can't survive. He wasn't supposed to survive, in my opinion. And he pulls it off. He goes in his pocket, he gets out a pen, and he shoves it in his throat so he can breathe and not drown in the box filled with water. That scene was like ridiculous. It was just so much fun and just made me love him even more. Like, he was such a great character. My least favorite thing about this movie is his fate at the end. I did not like that. It was upsetting. Like, of course, I wanted Hoffman to survive, but I wanted Strom to as well. Like, I wanted both of them to survive and like battle out for more movies. But overall, the traps are really great. I loved this story. The acting was good. It was just one of those films that it's one of the Saw films that I can watch weekly and never get sick of. I just love it. I love it. I love the dynamic between the two. I wish there was more films with them, with both of them battling it out head to head, because Agent Strom knows Hoffman's dirty. He knows he's figured it out. And Hoffman knows that Agent Strom knows he's dirty. So it is a fight. It's a fair fight because they're both very smart and clever, but just, I guess, the better man won. Number 2 on my list is Saw 6. Now, Saw 6 was released in 2009. What I love about this film is you get a little bit more of John Kramer's backstory. You find out a little bit more about his cancer and his issues with insurance. You're introduced to somebody who works for the insurance company who basically found a loophole to like not provide him health insurance when he needed it the most. You also see him do it to somebody else. This guy is, been paying his health insurance on time for like several years. And as soon as he has an issue, they're like, oh wait, you lied on your application. We cannot help you. Basically granted him a death sentence. So the main guy behind this and everybody who works under him has to go through these different traps. And they are really cool traps. There's one, it's kind of like a carousel. And he basically has to let 3 of his employees that work under him survive. And the other ones, he has to just let them die, like get shot in the freaking face. I know it sounds brutal, but it's cool. And it's basically his game, and he's going through the different traps one by one. A lot of people involved are kind of innocent and don't really deserve it, and some of them do, But Hoffman, even though, John Kramer is gone, Hoffman is basically handling things. He is the new Jigsaw, and I love him. I've said that several times in this video. There's something just so raw about him. Like when Jill puts the mask on his face and thinks she got him, and he slams his face into like that glass and it goes off, but it like doesn't rip his head off. It basically, he rips it off his face, rips off a big portion of his face, and then like sews it back together himself while bleeding out. He's a beast. So yeah, he's running the games. I was so happy when I originally saw that Amanda was going to take over for John, I didn't like it too much. And it's not because I don't think Amanda Young was a good character. I did like her character. I just did not like her for the Jigsaw position, and obviously I was right with like my gut because she fails left and right. And she was a killer, even though Hoffman is a killer. I just didn't like her for that role. I really did like it when Hoffman took over. Not that I wanted Amanda to die, but I wanted him to be it because he was just ruthless. But yeah, This film is a good film, like good acting, good, the traps are amazing, they're bloody, they're brutal. I love how it ends. Overall, it's such a good film. So number one on my list, and my favorite Saw film, was 2005's Saw 2. I love this movie. I love Donnie Wahlberg as Eric Matthews. He was just like, you believed, like the action to me was, I loved. I thought it was amazing. And not just because I loved Donnie Wahlberg, but you believed that he was a father who will do anything to get his son. Like the entire time you're at the edge of your seat, you see the traps going on with the people, like they wake up and they're like, holy crap, where are we? Danny, Eric Matthews' son, is one of the people trapped in the trap, in Jigsaw's big trap of like, I think there's like 5, 6 people, and they're all ex-cons, and they're all people that Detective Matthews has arrested, and some of them he has falsified. Like, I guess they were guilty of other things, and he was just trying to like get them in jail any way possible, so kind of framed them for other crimes, which is not a good thing to do. So it was just all people that had like a vendetta against him with his son. Now they don't know it's his son yet, but like they're one by one, they're like dropping like flies. I loved it. I loved the traps. I loved the cast. You just really believed that these people were ready to die. Like they were going to do anything possible to survive. The trap where Amanda gets thrown into like the pit filled with like needles. Ugh, every time I watch it, it just like makes my skin crawl. But it's just such a good film. And at the very end, you get a little twist. You know, the entire time you feel like one thing's happening, and then you find out it's not. It's completely something different. I love that about Saw films, that you feel like you're watching one thing and then the ending happens, and it's just like this brilliant twist that you get. If you watch all these films back to back to back, I know there's a lot of movies, there's 10, but like binge it in one weekend. It's like, it's getting cold out, you're not gonna do much, right? It's the summer's over. Binge watch all these films back to back, and you'll just see how brilliant they are. Like, there's so much story behind every single one of them. You find a little bit more of John Kramer's history, but you're also finding out about everybody else's history involved. It's not like you get a character and you just don't know what happened to them. You might see a character for like 5 minutes in one film, and he might play a big role in another, or he might play a big role in one film and then you see him in little clips in others. It's pretty great if you watch them all together. Like, okay, I have no life and I've watched them all back to back like several times, but it's such a great franchise, and I really feel like it's underrated. Everybody thinks like of Saw as like torture porn. It is not. Yes, it's gory. Yes, the traps are brutal, but it is really a great set of films. If you're not watching them, you're definitely missing out. Just don't worry about the gore, get past it, and pay attention to everything else. I personally love the gore, but I love this story as well. I will never get tired of these movies, and I want more and more of these films. I hope you guys enjoyed my ranking. Comment down below. Let me know what your least favorite movie is and what your absolute favorite Saw movie is. And I hope you're having a great day. I will be right back.
Live or die. Make your choice.